Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we're talking about bread and circuses. If you don't know this phrase, it comes from a Roman poet. I think his name was satirist or satiric, something like that. And the original phrase is Panem circenses, I think. Basically, he talked about this idea that as long as your people are happy, as long as the people are content with bread and circuses, they can buy their food and they're entertained, you are fine. You're okay as a leader, as a ruler. And I don't know if this is like a commonly known thing. My dad speaks Latin and was educated in a British boarding school. And so this was something that we kind of just grew up innately knowing. But I don't think most people are kind of aware of this. If you've ever watched The Hunger Games, it's sort of kind of one of the central themes, keeping the people happy, making sure they don't rebel. And throughout my life growing up, we were always sort of taught about it as a way of making sure that the people in our society are kept content, even if everything around them is on fire and going crazy. And as a teenager, I thought about this phrase a lot, bread and circuses, and I really rebelled and tried to, go against that by never really having, never shutting my brain off, never tuning into the mass opium of the world. You often hear about people that come back from work and they turn on the TV and they just shut their brain off and they're just chilling and they're relaxing and enjoying whatever, show they like, watching the hockey game, whatever it is. And I really rebelled against that. And so my entire teenage years were spent like learning as much as I can and studying different things and different areas of the world, philosophy, geography, like everything I could. I do not think the same way I thought when I was 14 or 16. Now I think it is really healthy to indulge in your bread and circuses, to just turn off, shut off, disconnect. We've talked about this before. We've talked about the idea of disconnecting from the really crazy geopolitical, economic stuff going on, disconnecting from the drama in your life, whether it is family or friends or situations that are just heavy. And I've really come to accept that it is absolutely okay to shut off that part of your brain, to relax and to have some just rest and make some space for yourself. And recently, what I've been doing is I've been watching the Kelly Clarkson show. And I gotta say, really enjoyable, really, really well done. I love Kelly Clarkson. I think she's so down to earth. She's so real, and she's got an amazing voice. She always talks to people about such interesting topics, and she handles everybody with such respect and care. And recently I was watching an episode of it and realized that it is something that I do to just shut off. It is my bread and circuses. It is something that I just can breathe and enjoy. And as someone who is involved in social media, it can be really difficult to not want to make content out of everything, or to think about things and go, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And it's a very unusual job, and I admit that. In the social media sphere, I have not taken like a full actual day off since I started. It's constantly thinking about content, crafting monologues, figuring out the intricacies of what I'd like to say, what I'd like to present, how I'd like to handle certain issues. It requires constantly being up to date on the social media sphere, what's changing, TikTok bans, are we using this platform now, are we using this platform, certain celebrities and what their political leanings are. Like, you kind of have to understand a lot of what is going on, and you have to have your fingers on the pulse. You have to be understanding the current of what's going on, because you won't make relevant or interesting content if you're totally disconnected. That's what I thought. However, I'm starting to believe that actually having that time to just disconnect, to deactivate, to relax, can actually make your life and your social media stuff even more effective, more interesting. And you know that I never follow trends. I never really follow the current zeitgeist. I try and always create a little interesting spin on it or a unique take. But that's kind of how the bread and circuses idea has been influencing me recently. I've also gotten back into an old video game that I really enjoy. And in this video game, you're basically building a medieval village, and it's very peaceful. It's very quiet. You know, you're helping the blacksmith. You're bringing in the wheat and the rye in the fall. You are turning that into flour so your people can have bread. You're going hunting for various animals to feed your village through the winter. You're building houses and insulating them and making sure the villagers are happy and they're starting to have children, and you're seeing this village sort of really grow. And it is so peaceful and relaxing and enjoyable. And I think that kind of bread and circuses is so essential. I used to take this really negative view of it, and I used to say, oh, I don't want to be a sheep. I don't want to just blindly follow what everyone else is doing, and you know, these people that go home at night and they just turn off. I mean, that's so lazy and unmotivated. I don't think that anymore, and I'm very sorry that I probably came across like that to people in my life when they talked about something like their comfort show. I always used to kind of dismiss it and be like, oh, come on guys, like, you know, the world is deep and you need to get better, you know, don't get bitter, get better, and 1% better every day, and, you know, following Mark Wahlberg's daily schedule and ridiculous things like that are just, there's a place for grinding and, you know, paying your dues and working super hard to get where you want to go. There's also a place for, I think it's called Epicurean philosophy. I've recently been reading the book Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I cannot recommend this book enough for anybody who is interested. In it, Henry David Thoreau, famous American philosopher and thought genius, decides to spend 2 years just disconnecting from society. He builds a little cabin out by this pond called Walden, and he basically records his thoughts over the 2 years and his exploratory ideas into human society, technological development, how all of these things are kind of affecting us, and are they making us happier? He decides that no, they're really not. And he's writing this in the 1800s. So he's talking about telegraph poles and building railroads and things that seem so distant to us, and yet technology like social media and our phones and spacecrafts and all of these things kind of fit exactly what he's talking about, funnily enough. Like, it's a very relevant book, even though it was written 200 years ago. And the book isn't fast-paced. In fact, it is very slow and laid back. I'm listening to an audiobook version that I'm really enjoying, and it's really got me to slow down. And like I said at the beginning of this year, my motto for this year is slow living, to relax, to take a step back, to breathe, to enjoy what is going on in life and appreciate the small things and the little things and the slow things, most importantly. And so I am learning to embrace bread and circuses. It's only taken almost 3 decades, but I'm finally learning to just breathe and relax, which is a huge part of almost every philosophical school of thought, regardless of what the motive of the school is. Breathe, appreciate, be mindful, be present in the moment. And sometimes that bread and circuses, that relaxing, monotonous, whatever, is exactly what you need. And constantly figuring out the geopolitical implications of Uzbekistan building a new dam, you don't need to know that. You know, you can know it if you're interested in it and if it's your bread and circuses, But if you're trying to know it because you're trying to know everything that's going on and have this huge, wide understanding of the way the world is moving and be able to anticipate and invest or see what the next move after that is, at some points, life is not a game of checkers or chess. At some points, life is just meant to be enjoyed like a painting or a speech or a video game or a show you like. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I remember a few years ago, there was an author a journalist, who was on the tube in London, on the metro, and I think it was a woman, she observed an adult person reading the Harry Potter books on the tube, just reading it by herself. And this journalist decided to go home and write this article about how she wanted so hard to slap this book out of this adult's hands, who was just quietly reading. Because in her assumption and belief, it was absolutely inappropriate for an adult to be reading a children's book. And she was really frustrated by this. And she said that it speaks to a larger problem in our society where adults, and young adults especially, are hesitant to relinquish the things of youth. You know, there's this idea that we need to remove the things of our youth. You know, those are for kids. You're an adult, act like it. And even then, I remember reading this article and thinking that the author was a bit of a pretentious dork and very self-absorbed, very my way or the highway in her thinking. And the idea of slapping a book out of an adult's hands who is just quietly reading, you know, they're not screaming, they're not, you know, making us feel unsafe on the subway. They're literally just doing their thing. And for this author and this journalist to get so visibly angry, I mean, you could read it in the article that this person was so angry that an adult was, you know, at the end of work just reading Harry Potter. And you will often see these like motivational figures and these very prolific life coaches talking about this idea that you need to relinquish the things of youth. You need to act like an adult. And for a while, I understood that idea. I think knocking a book out of someone's hands is totally unacceptable. But now I have a much stronger opinion, and that opinion is leave people alone. Let them live the life that they would like to lead. And if that means that they want to read Harry Potter in their time off, just going home on the subway, leave them alone. Stop judging them. I think this is the biggest point of what I'm trying to get at, is judging people for the way that they relax and that they de-stress is ridiculous. There's been some reports and some articles about kid adults. And while I think it's, you know, a bit funny that these adults are spending like $3,000 a year on these they're called jelly, not jelly babies, but jelly something or other. And they're these stuffed animals. And some adults are really into this, into collecting these things. And I just think, let's stop judging people so harshly for what we expect them to do, because these people are somewhat functioning human beings. Like we are all somewhat functioning human beings. There are areas of our lives that we will never get completely right. We'll never knock it out of the park. We're not going to get a home run or a touchdown. And the idea that we have to be this stiff, rigid, productive automaton adult is really antiquated. We are not cogs in a factory. And if you get your work done, if you take care of the people in your life, if you try and lead a good life that doesn't, you know, destroy the environment or ruin your health, you're doing fine. And enjoy your bread and circuses. That's basically the justification for this video. Enjoy the silly things in life that you do, that you enjoy, that nobody should take away from you, that no one's allowed to judge you on, and just breathe, just enjoy, just exist. That's my opinion, that's my thought. Leave people alone, let them do what they want to do, especially if they're not hurting anyone else. You don't get to have an opinion on that. That's my vibe. So let me know what you think about bread and circuses, this idea. We can get into some deep philosophy if you wish. And as always, I hope you guys are having a beautiful day, week, month, year, century, decade, millennium, whatever you're having. I hope it's amazing. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.